Clara was on her daily cleaning ritual, moving nimbly around the small apartment she shared with David. The morning sun filtered through the curtains, illuminating the room with a soft, warm light as she mopped the surfaces. The smell of the fresh coffee David had prepared still hung in the air, a mixture of comfort and routine that enveloped her. As he organized the objects on the table, a small sheet of paper caught his attention. Curious, she squatted down and, when she pulled it out, she realized that it was a lottery ticket. "How strange," muttered Clara, holding the note between her fingers. "I don't remember us buying that." She examined the ticket, the numbers drawn in black ink, and on an impulse, decided she could play it in the next draw. "Who knows, right?" she thought, laughing to herself. Amid the hustle and bustle of everyday life, it was rare to have a moment of hope, and this idea cheered her up. With a smile on her face, Clara put the note in her pocket and continued her tasks. Later, as David was getting ready to go to work, Clara couldn't contain her anxiety. "David, do you remember when we bought that lottery ticket?" he asked, trying to sound casual. David paused for a moment, looking at her with a raised eyebrow. "Lottery ticket? No, I don't remember. You know it's a waste of money, right? What you gain is just an illusion." He said the sentence with an ironic smile, before picking up his backpack and heading for the door. "Yeah, I know, but what if we won? Have you ever thought about what it would be like?" Clara insisted, her tone a little more hopeful than she intended. "Clara, you know this is just a dream. Real life is here, with bills to pay and the car in need of repair. Let's focus on what really matters," David replied, his voice carrying a weight she knew all too well. Worry about debt and the uncertainty of the future hung like dark clouds over them, and Clara didn't want to add to the pressure. With David gone, she sat at the kitchen table, the note now in front of her. Doubt and excitement intertwined in his heart. "What if I really win?" he thought. It was a possibility she couldn't ignore. A different future, where financial worries didn't dominate their lives, where she could fulfill her dreams and provide David with a more comfortable life. That night, Clara decided to check the draw numbers. Her heart was beating fast as she watched television, anxiously awaiting the results. When the numbers started to be announced, your palms sweated and your stomach turned. And then, one by one, the numbers appeared. With each hit, his heart skipped a beat. When he finally realized that he had hit them all, an involuntary scream escaped his lips. "I won! I won!" Clara exclaimed, tears streaming down her face. Joy enveloped her like a tight hug, but soon the euphoria gave way to a whirlwind of thoughts. She looked at the note, now a precious relic in her hands, and the idea of telling David disappeared. The fear of his reaction, the worries about what the money could do to their lives, made her hesitate. "I need to think better," she muttered to herself. Clara decided that she would keep the award a secret, at least for now. It would be their chance to change everything, to transform their lives without the weight of doubt and distrust that money could provoke. She imagined a new house, trips, and even a better car for David. With each thought, the idea of sharing this happiness became more distant. It was clear that, to make her dreams come true, she would need to act alone, even if the burden of lying began to weigh on her. Clara sat at the kitchen table, the morning light filtering through the curtains, as she looked at the new toaster she had purchased the week before. The shiny piece seemed almost a symbol of her new life, and the smell of toasted bread mingled with the excitement pulsing inside her. It was a small luxury, but to Clara, it meant much more than just a kitchen utensil. It was a promise of better days, a new routine that she had always dreamed of, far from the financial worries that plagued her daily marriage. However, as the toaster whistled, Clara couldn't ignore the feeling of guilt that accompanied her. The image of David, her husband, appeared in her mind. He was in his workshop, covered in grease, trying to fix a car that was barely running. The look of frustration on his face when the bills arrived at the door made her stomach sink. He would never understand, thought Clara, biting her lower lip. I just want him to have some happiness, even if I have to lie to do it. With each passing day, Clara found herself more and more involved in her new reality. I had bought new clothes, something I hadn't done since the beginning of the marriage. The blue dress she had chosen for a friend's birthday party seemed to dance on her body when she looked in the mirror. "You look stunning, Clara," exclaimed her friend Renata upon seeing her at the party. The words were like a balm for his soul. Clara smiled, but inside, she felt the pressure of keeping her secret. One night, while David was watching football on television, she decided to prepare a special dinner. "What do you think of filet mignon? And I made those mashed potatoes you love," she said, with a forced smile. David looked at her, surprised. "Filet mignon? Clara, you know we can't spend that much on food, right?" "We need to save money," David replied, concern evident in his eyes. Clara felt a pang of pain when she heard those words. "That was exactly what I wanted to change. But, love, we can treat ourselves to a special dinner every now and then. I just wanted you to know how much I care," she insisted, trying to hide the anxiety in her voice. David sighed but smiled at her. "All is well then. A special dinner today, but don't forget about the bills coming up." That night, as David was getting ready for bed, Clara looked out the living room window, watching the full moon that illuminated the city. A bold idea began to take shape in her mind. What if she used some of the money to go on a trip? A little refuge, just the two of them, away from worries and stressful routines. Clara knew it would be a big blow, but the idea of seeing David smile without worry made her feel alive. The next morning, Clara started researching destinations. What were once distant dreams now seemed within reach. A weekend at the beach, perhaps? Or maybe a cabin in the mountains? She muttered to herself, imagining what it would feel like to be away from everything. But with each plan she made, guilt enveloped her again, like a heavy cloak. "I need to tell him. I need it," she repeated in her mind. But the idea of unmasking her secret left her paralyzed. It was then that he decided it wasn't time yet. "I'm going to enjoy this new life a little before revealing everything. Then, when we're happy, I'll tell you," he promised internally. Clara felt that, in some way, she was moving away from David, but the hope of a better future kept her firm. Meanwhile, David was oblivious to Clara's plans. He continued to struggle with financial difficulties, his face marked by constant stress. "Just one more month and everything will get better," he muttered to himself, trying to convince himself. And so, while Clara's world turned into a dream, David's remained shrouded in shadow. Tension between the two was building, but Clara was determined not to let reality stop her from living the life she always wanted. Clara was radiant as she admired the landscape through the window of the bus, taking her to the coast. The sea breeze promised a refuge from the difficult, everyday life, and she couldn't wait to dive into the new life she had dreamed of. The group of people she met on the trip awakened in her a hitherto dormant ambition. They were elegant, successful, and their smiles were adorned with shiny jewelry that reflected the sun. Clara felt attracted to that world of luxury and ostentation, and a bold idea began to take shape in her mind. During the journey, one of the group members, a woman named Vanessa, started a conversation. "So, honey, what do you do for a living?" he asked, with a curious look. Clara hesitated for a moment, trying to decide whether she should reveal her true occupation. "I'm a maid," she replied, a little embarrassed. Vanessa smiled understandingly. "Ah, how interesting. We all start somewhere, don't we? But you must have big dreams." "Dreams, yes," Clara managed to smile, although a hint of insecurity dominated her. "I want to provide a better life for myself and my husband." The conversation moved on to other topics, but the desire for a life of wealth and sophistication intensified within her. As the bus continued its journey, Clara looked out the window and saw luxurious waterfront homes, with yachts anchored in the crystal-clear waters. One day, I'll have it all, he thought. Meanwhile, David was at home, worry weighing heavily on his heart. He couldn't ignore the changes in Clara's behavior. Ever since she won the lottery, something felt different. The way she looked at things, the way she talked about the future. All of this made him uneasy. "She's hiding something," he muttered to himself as he organized his tools in the workshop. The smell of oil and metal calmed him, but his anxiety grew every day. One night, after another exhausting day at the workshop, David decided to put an end to his doubts. He sat at the table, waiting for Clara to return home. When she finally entered, with a radiant look and a shopping bag in her hand, He confronted her. Clara, we need to talk. You've been acting strange. What's going on? She hesitated, the bag dangling in her hand. Nothing, love. I just bought some new things. You know how it is, don't you? Her voice sounded a little too loud, and David could tell she was nervous. Don't fool me, Clara. I see you changing. What are you really doing with the money? I'm doing what I can to give us some joy, David. Life has been so hard, and I just want some happiness, Clara replied, her voice shaking. But her defensiveness only made David more suspicious. Happiness can't be bought, Clara. And if you're hiding something from me? He stopped, the tension growing between the two. We're a team, and I need to know the truth. Clara took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. He didn't want David to know about his plans. I promise I'm doing everything for us. Don't worry. But inside, she felt increasingly guilty. The idea of buying a new car without telling him was becoming more and more alluring, and the pressure of keeping the secret was starting to take its toll. As David continued to work on his projects, Clara decided she needed to do something to relieve the pressure. With each passing day, the temptation to spend increased. I can do this, she whispered to herself, looking at an ad for a sports car she had seen on the internet. This is going to be our change. And so, while Clara found herself increasingly involved in her lies, David continued to put the pieces of the puzzle together without imagining the storm that was about to form. Both were in opposite directions, not realizing that the truth, when revealed, could be devastating. Clara was restless as she drove the new car down the road, the engine rumbling softly under the shiny hood. The smell of leather and the feeling of power surrounded her, but the joy was overshadowed by the shadow of her lie. Upon arriving home, she parked the car in the garage, trying to hide the anxiety that consumed her. The sun was beginning to set, and golden light filtered through the windows, creating a welcoming atmosphere, but Clara knew the atmosphere would soon change. David was in the backyard, sweating as he tried to fix the old truck he had purchased years ago. He looked at the new car, eyes narrowing in suspicion. Clara got out of the vehicle, a forced smile on her face. Look, love, she exclaimed, trying to sound enthusiastic. I found this incredible financing opportunity and couldn't resist. David crossed his arms, his gaze fixed on the car. The expression on his face changed, and Clara could feel the tension rising. Financing? He repeated, his voice full of skepticism. Since when have you been making this type of investment, Clara? She hesitated, her mind racing for a convincing explanation. He knew that the truth was a bomb waiting to explode and that every word that came out of his mouth could be a step towards the abyss. I saw a promotion. It was time to change cars, don't you think? Clara tried to force a smile, but David didn't seem convinced. Change cars? With what money, Clara? David insisted, his tone now firmer. We are mired in debt, and you decide to buy a new car? Clara felt her heart accelerate. The pressure in the room seemed to increase, and she desperately searched for a way out. I thought we could do long-term financing. I researched and, she began, but David interrupted her. You thought? Or did you simply act without thinking about the consequences? He approached, distrust evident in his eyes. What else are you hiding from me? The accusation hung in the air, sharp as a blade. Clara felt a wave of panic. She didn't want him to know, but the truth was about to reveal itself. I'm not hiding anything. I just wanted to. Clara tried to defend herself, but her voice broke. I wanted us to have something good, something that made us happy. David shook his head, exasperated. Happiness doesn't come from a new car, Clara. It comes from honesty and trust. And now, I don't know what to think anymore. Silence fell between them, only the sound of the new car's engine breaking the tension. David walked away, returning to the truck, and Clara followed him, trying to reach his hand. David, please listen to me, she begged, but he walked away, focusing on his task, as if his life depended on the old truck. What do you want me to hear? That you decided to put us even more in debt? He was clearly angry, and every word sounded like a stab. Clara took a deep breath, fighting back the tears that threatened to escape. I just wanted something better for us. I thought this car could be a start, he confessed, his voice softer. "I thought if we achieved something new, maybe everything would change." "Would it change?" David laughed, but there was no joy in his laugh, only bitterness. "Clara, you need to understand that we cannot escape problems with illusions. We need to face reality." She looked at him, her face marked with frustration and pain. "I know, but," she began, but David interrupted her again. "But what, Clara? You've been lying to me. How can I trust you now?" His words echoed in Clara's mind, like a distant echo. Trust, that fragile link that united them both, was crumbling before their eyes. "I did not want to hurt you," she shouted, her voice breaking. "I just thought that once we could be happy." David stopped working and turned to face her, his gaze intense. "To be happy, Clara, we need to be honest with each other. And you are far from that now." Clara felt the pressure building in her chest, the truth becoming an unbearable weight. She knew the situation was becoming unsustainable, but she didn't know how to reverse what she had started. Silence fell again, and the distance between them seemed greater than ever. David turned his attention to the truck, while Clara walked away, her heart heavy, not knowing what the future held. Doubt and insecurity consumed her, and the only thing left was the fear of what might happen next. Clara felt her heart beating uncontrollably in her chest. The tension in the air was palpable as David watched her, his eyes filled with suspicion. The room seemed smaller, full of shadows that reflected the heavy atmosphere between them. She took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "David, I promise you, everything is fine. I just wanted to surprise you with something nice," Clara said, her voice shaky but trying to sound convincing. He looked at her, his eyebrows furrowed. "Surprise? With a car you bought without telling me?" "Clara, I'm not an idiot. There's something more there, and I need to know what it is." Clara looked away, fighting the tide of emotions that invaded her. I just wish we had something new, something that made us feel good for a while. Things have been so difficult, David." "Difficult? You think I don't know that? I'm here every day trying to fix what we got, and you hide behind a new car? What's happening with you?" The frustration in his voice echoed off the walls, and Clara felt the weight of guilt crush her. She needed a plan. The idea of going to the lottery point of sale began to take shape in his mind. If he could figure out what to do with the prize without David knowing, maybe he could still save them from all this mess. "I'm going to the market, okay? I need to buy some things," Clara said, trying to divert attention. "What about the car, Clara? What are you going to do with him?" David asked, distrust evident in every word. She hesitated, but she had no time for hesitation. "I'll see if I can get better financing. I'll be right back." And without waiting for an answer, she grabbed her bag and hurried out, her heart pounding. On the way to the lottery point of sale, Clara mentally reviewed each step she would need to take. What would she say? How would you explain everything? Adrenaline coursed through his veins, mixed with a growing fear. What if the truth about the note were revealed? What would she do if David found out? Upon arriving at the location, Clara took a deep breath, trying to calm down. The small store was empty except for an attendant who was watching her curiously. She approached the counter, her heart racing. "I would like to know about the ticket I bought." "The one who won," Clara said, her voice wavering. The attendant frowned. "Do you have the note with you?" Clara swallowed and, with a nervous gesture, took the note out of her bag. "Here it is. I just wanted to confirm that everything is okay with him." He took the note, analyzing it carefully. "Let me check the system." The silence stretched on, and Clara began to feel increasingly restless. The walls seemed to close in around him. Her mind was racing a mile a minute, imagining the worst consequences. What if there was an error? What if the prize wasn't really hers? "Sorry, ma'am, but it appears we have a problem with this ticket," the attendant said, his expression changing from curiosity to concern. Clara's stomach tightened. "Problem? What kind of problem?" "The ticket you presented is not registered for this draw. I need to ask you to contact the lottery office for more information." Clara's world collapsed. "What do you mean by that? How can it not be registered?" "I won." The attendant, visibly uncomfortable, just shook his head. "I'm sorry, but I can't help. You need to call the office." Clara left the store in shock. The fresh air outside didn't help clear his mind. What would she do now? The lie was about to unfold into something much bigger than she had imagined. David, with his suspicions, and she, with her increasingly heavy secret, became a storm ready to break. Sitting down on a nearby bench, Clara took out her cell phone and, with shaking hands, began to dial the lottery number. The thought of David, the distrust in his eyes, the guilt that consumed her, everything swirled in her mind. "What I'll do," she whispered to herself, aware that the answers were increasingly distant. Clara sat at the kitchen table, the phone still in her hands, her heart racing. The voice of the lottery attendant echoed in her ears, but the words were confused with the whirlwind of thoughts that invaded her. "Something's not right with your ticket." What did this mean? She had dreamed of this victory, and now everything seemed to fall apart. Not knowing what to do, she looked out the window, where the sun was beginning to set, turning the sky orange and pink. It was beautiful, but at that moment, nothing looked beautiful. The door opened and David entered, his face tired and sweaty after a long day of work. He looked at Clara, immediately realizing something was wrong. "Hi, love. What's wrong? You look pale," he commented, moving closer. Clara tried to smile, but the gesture seemed like a wasted effort. I'm just a little tired," she replied, her voice shaking. She didn't want him to know that the lottery win was in danger, but the tension in the air was palpable. "Is everything okay with the note?" David asked, concern growing in his eyes. Clara felt her heart tighten. How did he know she had a note? "You didn't tell me you won, did you?" His expression morphed, from a worried man to someone who was beginning to piece together the puzzle she had tried to hide. I just wanted it to be a surprise." She bit her lip nervously. "I thought with this money we could, settle our debts." David raised an eyebrow. "Settle our debts? Clara, you didn't tell me anything. What else are you hiding?" With each word he spoke, Clara felt the ground opening beneath her feet. "I'm not hiding anything. I just didn't want to worry you." "Worry? Clara, you're not worrying me. You're deceiving me." His voice rose, and he began pacing back and forth, trying to control his anger. "You knew I was struggling to pay the bills, and now you tell me you won the lottery and didn't tell me? It was an accident, David. I didn't know how you would react. I thought I could use the money to help us." Tears began to slide down Clara's face, a mixture of guilt and despair. "But now everything is falling apart." He stopped walking and stared at her. "What do you mean, everything is falling apart?" Clara took a deep breath, her mind racing. "The ticket was purchased with your credit card." The silence between them became deafening. David narrowed his eyes, processing the information. "What are you saying? That you used my card to buy a lottery ticket?" "Yes, but I didn't know you were aware," Clara shouted, frustration taking over. "I didn't know. I just wanted a chance to change our lives." "So you knew I was deep in debt and decided to gamble with my money without telling me?" "Clara, that's treason." His voice was full of pain, and she felt every word like a blow. "Betrayal? I just wanted to help. I dreamed of a better life for us," she replied, desperate. The argument intensified, and the two found themselves at an impasse, distrust and hurt taking over. "I don't know if I can go on like this, Clara. You lied to me, and that's something I don't know if I can forgive." David's gaze was dark, and she felt a chill run down her spine. "What about you? You knew about my prize and didn't say anything. You were planning to use it for yourself?" Her tone was acidic, and the words came out like venom. Finally, Clara said, "Maybe it would be better if we split up. I don't know if we can trust each other again." David ran a hand through his hair, exhausted. "Maybe you're right. You lost not only the prize, but the trust we had in each other." He turned away, the pained expression etching his face as he walked out of the kitchen, leaving Clara alone with the knowledge that, in that moment, they lost not only the lottery prize, but also what was left of the love they once shared.